So my name is Jessica Albers, and you are in Beyond Marketing. So a little bit about myself. I am a product of K through college Lutheran education. I am also the 6th generation of my family to serve as a LCMS church worker. So I'm very proud of that legacy and heritage of my family. Last night when they were asking about how many Concordias people attended, I actually attended 3 different Concordias. So I started my undergrad at Concordia, Nebraska in graphic design, and about halfway through realized that I really wanted to go into teaching. So I switched majors and also happened to meet my husband. We were at Camp Lone Star as counselors. Great place to meet a spouse there. So transferred to Concordia, Texas, where I completed my bachelor's in theology and education. And then this last December, I just finished the Director of Church Ministry certificate at Concordia, Wisconsin. Currently serve at Salem Lutheran School in Tomball, Texas. I'm the head of admissions and marketing for the school. And I live there with my husband. We just celebrated 15 years of marriage in December, and we have 2 kids. Ethan is 13, and my daughter Kaylin is 10, and they both attend Salem school. So, coming into this topic, and this is where it's going to become tricky, because I am going to flip this.
Down arrow before. Yep. It's confusing.
Okay, thank you. Just let me know what I need to do. So why we're here and what has kind of put all of this on my heart is both my background in marketing and also in ministry and theology. So my professional background in marketing, I did freelance graphic design right away out of college, was helping with branding, brand strategy, helping small businesses develop their marketing plans. It all kind of goes together on that smaller scale. So I did that. I've done that now for about 18 years. And as I moved into church work and started to work in marketing within the church context, and when I say church, that's church and school, just so I don't have to keep repeating that. So just, there will be applications that are school specific, and I'll identify those later. But if I just say church, we're talking about the organization that includes schools. So something that I kept butting into was that, I'm doing all this professional development in marketing, but then I'm doing all of this education in theology and ministry, and the two weren't always connecting right. And I wasn't always seeing the desired outcomes with marketing that I wanted to see in ministry, because the goals are different. So this is our session description for you. This will be posted in the app when we're done today. Okay, so starting out with a very bold statement. A healthy church school should be able to grow without any marketing. True? That's kind of scary, especially in today's context when we're all wrapped up in social media and we're all wrapped up in what things look like and promoting and competition and, marketing is sales. So the meaning of marketing is to promote yourself and to promote what you're doing so that people come and buy your product or buy into what you're doing and you get something out of it. So the end result of marketing is you benefiting. So the problem within that church context is we sometimes cannot see the forest for the trees. We lose sight of our actual goals because we're so caught up in all the minutia and in all of those flashy things that come with marketing. So, and we're going to discuss this a little bit here in a minute with what you guys are doing. But I personally, and this is kind of becoming my holy discontent, is focusing our efforts on the wrong things. So is anyone in here graphic design or on that side of the marketing? No. Oh, okay. A little bit. Does anyone run social media accounts for their... Yeah. Okay. You sometimes wish you could say, this is a full-time job by itself. This is not fun. Yeah. Okay. So when I say this, there's always a new flashy thing with social, and not just social media, but all marketing, right? So someone goes to conferences, come back, and they're like, this is it, this is what we have to do. Or Facebook comes out and they're like, oh, well, we changed the algorithm, so your posts don't actually do anything anymore. You have to start paying $1,500 a month because we realized we could get money from you to expand your reach, and that's the only way you're going to reach people. It's constantly changing. And I feel like it's now become a massive distraction. Now, stop and time out right here. I'm going to be criticizing marketing quite a bit. I'm not saying that we should not be marketing. Okay, so get that right from the beginning. What I am framing this as is I don't think that that should be our first step, and I don't think that that should be our primary emphasis. So if we're putting all of our hope and faith into an event next week on our social media, or if we're putting all of our hope and faith on church growth into a billboard, we're going to be sorely disappointed in the results. Okay, so these are some things that I just brainstormed, common complaints in ministry marketing. I work with some other schools and kind of coaching and mentoring them a little bit with admissions marketing on the school side, but also just working, if any of you are in the Lutheran Communicators group or some of those marketing groups, there's always questions like this. So the church school is not growing, or there's just stagnant growth, which means we're just kind of staying the same year to year. People are maybe new visitors are coming in, but they're not staying. They're not becoming those dedicated members or on-fire parents that we want to see. The members are not engaged in inviting, and I think that's a whole church culture that's bigger even in the context here. Marketing efforts are random, reactive versus planned, or you might have a marketing plan, but you don't feel like it's effective. So you're just churning. You have limited or no budget for marketing. Lots of head nods. We're supposed to do a lot with a little, or nothing. Burden of growth and engagement is all on the church staff as an organization, which if you guys did not go to Courtney Burns's session from Thursday morning, it was absolutely fantastic. Check out her recording. It's all about burnout and what that looks like for church workers. If there's frustration with low attendance or participation at events, or the marketing is given significant emphasis as a must-have, must-do, but it's often assigned to someone with 17 other hats or someone who's untrained in marketing altogether. Does that sound familiar to anyone? Yes. Do you have other things to add to that aren't on my list? Or certain things that maybe you're struggling with within marketing?
Just not knowing how to use Facebook, how to use Instagram, how to use whatever. Just, the different platforms.
Yeah. Well, and with that, even if you do, it changes every week. So you get, by the time you get into your strategy, they change it, and then you're putting in all this effort, and you have to shift gears, and video is king now, so now you got to learn to edit video, and yeah. So I think overall too. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I think one problem is that people's natural tendency to want to separate church and school events, functions. So, well, this is a school event, so I can't go, or I shouldn't go, and vice versa, and trying to cross that bridge even within your same ministry.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that too, how to engage some of those relationships. But yes, that's another thing of just I'm trying to figure out how to frame that. It's almost diluted energy. So like we're trying to do this, and we need to do this, where everything's getting a lane with just direct flow to it. That's kind of a bigger. That goes into communications too, and how things are running in your organization, but also how how you're running your calendars and how you're pushing all of that. So that in itself has come up in a few sessions too, of like, how do you structure the entire thing, because it's all important. It's important for school to have their back to school bash, and it's important for the fall festival, and it's important for this Thanksgiving fundraiser. You know, it's like things are happening all at the same time. So how do we let people know about it? Who needs to know about it? Is this a member only? Is this a family, school family? Is this an outside event? It's all of that. And then how do we do that? Because there's different ways to communicate that to different groups. So now again, we're just expanding the job further and further and further. And I don't know about you, when I start facing things like that, I almost freeze, because it's just like, I don't even know where to start to let people know, you know, beyond just the regular, like, posting it. Okay. Oh, I'll try to find my slide here. Okay, so this is this is also part of it. There's just so much noise right now, and it kind of all looks the same. So this was a revelation in the last couple weeks. These are some girls from my school. Their mom gave me permission. She's one of my friends. We did a sermon event in our community this fall, but they're in their plaid uniforms. Girl in the back's in her polo shirt. But on the school side, if you look at Lutheran school social media accounts, we all kind of say the same thing. We all have academic excellence. We all are Christ-centered. We're all doing the same thing. You know, how many schools could swap your logo in for mine and maybe change the color of the plaid, and this would apply to your school? So that has become a frustration with me too, is like, I'm doing all this, but I'm really supporting like all Lutheran schools at the same time. You know, is this really unique? Is this really bringing the results that I want? And that goes to the church side too. We all have Christmas services. We all have Easter. We all have fall. You know, we're all trying to get people to come in with the same results. And while we're doing that now, we're also fighting with mega brands who can pour millions a month into their social media and websites and Google AdWords, and we start getting piled on and driven down. So we're constantly fighting those algorithms. We're constantly fighting against these bigger competitors. Okay, so here we go towards starting to plan. So what is our actual goal when it comes to marketing our churches and schools? It's kind of a trick question, going into a little theology.
Disciples.
We didn't even need to discuss it. Arla got it right away. Yeah, we're supposed to make disciples, right? Great Commission, isn't that the end goal that we want? And that's another thing with marketing. Marketing is, and we're going to talk about the sales funnel here in a second, but the end goal of marketing is that we are going to get something from them. We are trying to get them to make a decision that ends up benefiting us. But in reality, when we're talking missionally, we are trying to build that relationship so that we can offer them something, right? And something that's not just an awesome worship experience or an awesome event, but something way more and something priceless. Okay. There's a little thing on here that bounces to show me what slide I'm on, and that's really helpful. I was worried I would get lost. Okay. Oops. I tell you what. I am tech savvy, just not early on a Saturday morning. So we're diving in now, marketing versus missional mindset. We are going to be combining the two. So like I said, sometimes I feel like, especially in ministry and especially now that we are engaging more into more of that commercial marketing, we're often too focused on the sales mindset of that instead of the missional mindset. How many of you sometimes feel like it's just butts and seats? Especially on the school side. I talk to a lot of schools that are struggling with this, where it's like, I have to hit numbers. Like, I have to hit numbers, but we want missional partner families, but we need kids that are going to be good in our school. But, you know, and it just layers on with what is the end goal here and what are we trying to do? With the butts and seats approach, a little bit crass to say, I do know that. You know, there is something to be said for them being willing and wanting. And, you know, are we looking for just that big, you know, I say the impact sometimes that we want is broad and shallow, when in reality, you know, heaven's expectation of us is actually not that big and wide. You know, if we, this is kind of a joke, and my pastor is actually in the room, but if one person came as a visitor on Easter Sunday and receive salvation that Sunday, like heaven would be freaking out, but in the boardroom the next Wednesday, you would be getting in trouble, you know? So sometimes, and that does not happen at my church, but we sometimes lose focus on that, on what are we actually doing? What are we trying to what are we trying to get to happen with these people that we're bringing in? And coming from school admissions, I'm constantly hit with those numbers, budgets, and the business side of things, which now our churches are more businesses. You know, we do have to bring in numbers so that we keep our jobs, and so we can keep our ministries going. So, has anyone seen a sales funnel, sales pipeline before? Okay. So we'll go through this real quick. There's different versions of these out here. I like this one because it put both the pipeline and the funnel. They're a little bit different, but we're going to build this into our discipleship pathway. And this is showing up a little more yellow than green, so I'm sorry if it's hard to read. So this top, oh, I have a pointer on here. Hold on. Look at that. All right. So we're going to start with this pipeline over here. So lead generation, that's going to be reaching out to those people that you're just looking for someone who'll take the bait. Prospect qualification, that means they're somewhat educated on your product. They are looking for your product. It's not just a cold person out there. Sales meeting, so that's when you engage them, get them some information about what is expected with closing the sale. You get the proposal all set up, and then you close the deal. So again, at the end of this, the goal is there's an ending point where the sale is made, they're done. We hope they're happy and we hope they share, but we got what we needed from them, right? So if we don't ever see them again, we still got the sale, they move on. This is outside of the church context. This is the funnel now. So we start out broad. So the pool starts broad. We get down to decision where not everyone's going to purchase what we're offering. It's just going to be a small group. So we go again, awareness. They're aware that they might need to buy a car. They're aware that they're in need of something. They might be aware of you being out there. The interest is there. They have an intent to purchase. They're thinking about purchasing the thing. So this is when they've been informed and they're starting to think about it. And then again, a decision point. So on the school side, there is a little bit more of this sales because they're either enrolled or they're not. So there is that decision. But again, for us in ministry, that goes way beyond that enrollment point. So we're going to take a look at that here. So I rebuilt the pipeline. So and again, we're going to go back to that whole church context. You know, salvation is for everyone. Our churches, so church with a lowercase c, may not be a good fit for a person. You know, it might not be the place that we don't offer the style of worship they like. There's a lot of different factors in that part. When we're talking about church with a capital C, it is for everyone. And even if we aren't the good fit, that does not mean that ministry stops for them. And we say, well, there's some churches down the road you might like better. We want to continue on with making sure that they are on a discipleship pathway. We don't want them to just leave alone. You know, last night's talk was so great. We as church workers should never feel alone. These people, if we're telling them that Christ is with them all the time, that needs to start from the moment we shake hands, right? So I actually hate the word unchurched. Because in church, we always say, like, church is more than a building. And then, like, nobody should be unchurched if we're doing our jobs right. Because they should encounter us and we're the church. So I changed it. Tell your friends. It's a new thing. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk on that. So we go from unchurched. So we're going to say, in today's culture, and I feel like the church as a whole, so not even the Lutheran church, but just as a whole, we're still operating decades behind, where we assume everyone at least grew up going to Sunday school, or everyone has a taste of church. But we're living in now what is a post-Christian society and culture, and a lot of people have no idea. Absolutely no idea. They hear things, and there are things in our American vernacular that are from the church, but they don't have an idea. Some of the stuff coming from Barna recently has just been really sad, even amongst people who claim to be Christians.
Last year, 66% of our VBS were unchurched.
That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. Yeah. And now they're churched because they encountered you, you know. So that is I clicked a button. So you guys, I'm sorry. So the unchurched here. So the goal is that we don't have any unchurched people anymore. That comes with a social connection. So that then takes the next step where we're making friendships. And I said, at that point, they are churched. Once they encounter you, they should be churched. And that does not mean that you're sitting there and you're telling them, let me tell you about my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And, you know, that thing, I don't know if you watch Facebook Reels, but there's the one where, like, there's always, like, a little kid running away, and there's a guy saying, let me tell you about him, and chasing him down. I sometimes feel like people think that's the expectation. Like, we're supposed to walk up to someone and be like, come to my church. Okay. Oh, you know, that's the first step, is inviting them to church. And I just, you know, it's weird, and they're going to think I'm weird, and it's panic. It's not that at all. It's just making friends. So we talk about, I took a whole class on, like, neighborhood missions, called your oikos. Have you ever heard that before? It's the only Greek word I'll use today. So that is your natural extension of people. So, like, at lunchtime, I sometimes need a break, and if I don't walk away, I won't stop to eat, and I won't stop to take a break, like, all day. All day. It's the ADHD. I'll just, like, hyper-focus, and then it's 3 o'clock. I haven't eaten, gotten up, done anything. So I will literally get off campus sometimes just to give myself a brain break. And I go to my local H-E-B grocery store, and there's a woman named Alice there who works in the checkout line, because I go through the self-checkout. Well, we've become friends. So now she's part of my oikos. She's not a friend that I, like, bring over to my house. She doesn't know my family, but she knows my name, and I see her all the time. So she's someone naturally now that's within my, like, neighborhood connection group that I can then start building trust equity with. So that's the next step. Consistency over time. If you keep showing up and living what you believe, you don't even have to say a word about it. They're going to start noticing that and trusting you, so that when the invitation opportunity does arise, they're going to put more stock into it. Then you start the discipleship process of bringing them to church, Sunday school, educating, support, and encouraging. And that's when that starts. Okay, so I already flashed this question. So you're probably like, this is great, but who is supposed to do this? Because poor Arla is doing 7 full-time jobs in 15 hours a week. And that's probably most of us just feel very thin and drawn. And for me, my job isn't necessarily ministry. It is within the context, but, like, I'm not teaching theology. I'm not teaching classes in my weekday. I'm not that person or voice in my job. So when am I supposed to have time for this? And then I can't spend months and months and months, like, becoming friends with every family that's trying to come to school at Salem. So who's supposed to do this? Because I don't have the bandwidth for it. So 2 questions. Who is supposed to do this? And then for those of us on the school side, this is great, but it's enrollment season, and I don't have time to be making friends with all these people. Okay, so story time. I actually stole this story from a TED Talk. That was excellent. So in marketing, who's heard of word of mouth marketing as part of marketing? Okay, most effective marketing there is. Also free. If you do it right, you don't have to pay anything. So this is from Chris Cowan. He is a marketing expert, very research-based, does a lot of analysis on relationships and how people communicate with each other. So he's British. His story is set in Piccadilly Circus, which doesn't mean anything to us unless you've been there. So I'm going to set it in New York because we get what New York is. So he tells a story about 2 friends go to New York City, Broadway, and they see a street musician just playing on the corner. And, you know, you're with your friend and you're like, oh, that sounds great. And you sit there for a minute and you toss a $5 in the guitar case and you're walking along with your friend and your friend goes, if you like that guy and I know what kind of music you like, you have to check out the guy that sets up by Central Park. Like, absolutely fantastic. I know you'll love them. You know, talks about the type of music they play. And you're like, oh my gosh, yeah, I'll go check them out. So you go 25 minutes out of your way to Central Park because your friend knows you. You've listened to music together. They know your taste, all these things. They've highly recommended this musician. And you like supporting musicians. So you go out of your way, and this street musician is there, set up playing, and you sit there for 30 minutes just soaking it all in because she's fantastic. You know, and you love it, and your friend was right, and you sit there and you toss $20 in her guitar case because it was great, and you found someone you can support. You ask her, you know, do you have stuff online? Can I purchase anything? How can I support you? You're engaged because of the qualified recommendation of your friend, but you found someone directly who you like. So then, that evening you head back home. It's getting dark, you're getting dinner ready. There's a knock on the door. You're like, okay, this is weird, it's late. There's a street musician at your door. And he goes, hey, I've been studying your social media and all the likes and things that you do, and I realize you probably like my music. Can I come in and play for you? So most people will be like, that is really weird and creepy, and close the door, lock it, and like hide in the back of your house, right? That's what's happening all the time with the algorithm on social media. And we all know it. It's creepy, right? You'll be on the phone with someone, and then, like, my sister has babies. I don't have babies. I have a teenager and a preteen. And we'll talk about diapers or baby stuff. And then my Facebook is all baby stuff. Like, immediately, within hours. And it's like, I have not purchased diapers in a decade, but here we go, you know, and even it's getting weirder and weirder what's being picked up. And if you have like an Alexa in your house, holy cow. So it's very invasive and intrusive. And sometimes I think people, even with our marketing in churches and what we think we're doing, it becomes almost invasive and abrasive. And we don't want to be like that. We don't want to be associated with that as people, you know, as just the general public. So we kind of stay away from it. We don't want to be that person, and we don't know how to navigate that well. All right, trigger warning. So we're going to talk about MLMs next. You might have some trauma with that. I apologize. You might be in it. Don't invite me to a party because I will say no. It's like 5 years since I've been invited, and I'm on a really hot streak with that. So we're going to talk about this very carefully because there are a lot of problems with this as well, but there's some really good things that we can learn from the multi-level marketing setup that directly apply to what we're talking about building those relationships. All right. So when you start in a company like this, typically it starts with a, hey girl, I haven't seen you since 3rd grade. Let me tell you about this opportunity you need to jump into. And, you know, it's that kind of stuff happens. So that's one thing we're going to kind of put aside. But what these people are typically encouraged to do is to start with their friends and family. You start with people who are easy. You call up mom, you call up your sister, you call up people that are easy to talk to first. Typically, it starts with a party, right? Come to my party, just check it out. My mom used to have Mary Kay and Tupperware parties all the time, you know, and it'd just be women from the staff where my parents worked, and they'd all hang out and eat snacks on the Tupperware, and it was great, you know. Fun time. If you bought something, great. If not, you know, you'll get a phone call in a week when your other friends have parties. So you start with your friends and family. You start with who you know. They are always equipped with the product, with knowledge of the product, and with a mentor right away. So they're building their organization based on relationships from the start. So if anyone has ever been in it, it's all about uplines and downlines, and we're going to talk about the structure in a minute. Once they fall in love with the product that you're selling, you offer them that life-changing opportunity to share and grow their business. So when we frame this now missionally, we're going to talk about the structure in a minute. We're offering a life-changing opportunity, but we don't offer it with near the enthusiasm as some of these stay-at-home moms who are selling jewelry from their kitchens. So again, just thinking about relationships and how we're doing it, and we're gonna bring this all in, don't worry. So organizational structure, the downlines and uplines. So right now, within your position professionally, just be thinking, who's above me that's working as that mentor coming down? And it might not be a mentor relationship, it might just be who you report to. Think about who is your downline. That does not necessarily mean someone who reports to you. It does mean someone you work with. So for me, I've got a group of moms that I work with quite a bit. It could be people who report to you, your volunteers, all of that. They keep constant contact and support. I did the essential oil thing for a couple years, not proud of it, but it happened. And so it was the level of communication, and I'm an extrovert, was like, oh my gosh, like I just can't. It was from my direct upline, it was from her upline, it was from the diamond level upline, and then we had weekly meetings, and we had semi-annual meetings, and we had once a month big group meetings where the entire group was together, and the energy was fantastic, but it was just like, whoa, I'm constantly connected to everybody. But with that did come support. So I had all these people, if I had a question, I had a ton of people that I could immediately contact and have my questions answered. They provided constant education and trainings for their people. Professional and personal development. So teachers get a ton of professional development, and sometimes it's hard for, like, there are admissions conferences and things for me, for my role, but sometimes it's hard to find, depending on the role you hold in a church. The biggest thing from this is the excitement and urgency, and I feel like that is something that we need to take away too. They are super excited about whatever they are selling. And that's why it works, because they get their friends all charged up, their friends get their friends all charged up, and it just explodes. When we take this biblically, which we're going to go and dig deeper in a minute, think about the early church. What engages thousands of people to get baptized in an afternoon? Some of the depictions of Jesus, they're doing a much better job, like Chosen. I love how Jesus is depicted in Chosen. But like, early 90s, 80s, 70s, he was like floating around on a cloud, like, super mellow, and like, he couldn't have been like that because nobody would have wanted to be around him. And then that sense of urgency, like, oh my gosh, they're giving half off of the starter packs, ends Friday, or usually it ends today, always conveniently. But it's like, oh, you have to let me know today. If you don't let me know today, you're going to miss out. Like, oh, so sad. And, we have a sense of urgency in that if that person dies tomorrow without Jesus, they are lost forever. There's going to be other sales that happen, but you're one and done with the missional context of this. Okay. So probably answer the question, who is this for? Who's supposed to do this? This is a lot. So we're all sitting on powder kegs of growth opportunity in our congregations and school families. And again, with that forest for the trees, I feel like sometimes we're so focused on outside that we forget who is literally surrounding us on a day-to-day basis, and how we can lift them up to do a lot of this work for us. I can energize a group of people real quick. I can get silly. I can be funny. Middle school, high school teacher, so you get it. I can work with some of the most difficult people in our society. Let's just be real about that. But I cannot do that sustainably day after day after day, and pull all these people in by myself. Even within my job, I am bringing people into the school, but not directly. I'm processing the people that other people have recommended, word of mouth, or they found out. Almost everyone who comes to my school knows about it from a friend. But I have not invited anyone to attend Salem Lutheran School, personally. I've not asked a single friend to bring their kids, mostly because all my friends work at Salem, but I haven't gone out and done that, because I'm working within this context. So to expand my reach, the next most effective step is all of the parents at my school. So I had a mom last year, she brought in 6 families. 6 families that represent 12 kids at our school. And at my school, that's a chunk of change. We're on the higher end of tuition. I didn't do anything. She loves our school. She knew her friends because she's in relationship and community with them. They go and have coffee and complain about their schools. And she's like, we love our school, so you should check it out. After the first family, I called her, told her, thank you so much for referring your friends. And she goes, I have a few more. I was like, here's my cell phone number. Give it to them. Like, just hand it out. Just tell them to call me directly. And so now I've developed a really good relationship with her. I've equipped her with some of the basic knowledge that people ask me about on the phone. You know, she knows tuition. She knows some of the basic like FAQs that people ask right away when they come, so that those people then feel like they've been equipped to start making that decision before they even talk to me. So, vocation. We've kind of lost sight of this, I think, as a church body. We don't emphasize this hardly enough. And one of the classes I took for DCM, we read the entire, like all the confessions. Every single one is highlighted, and Luther was so big on vocation, so big and so passionate about it. And I think we need to really revive that, even in our level of leadership, whatever job you're in. But do your people know? So this is beyond church workers. Do they know that they're impactful and valuable where they are right now? That your moms on staff, when they come in and they cut things out, they cut butterflies out for first grade, they're helping, that's significant. When they're raising their kids at home. So for me, I've got mamas at home with infants. They constantly apologize. I wish I could do more. I'm so sorry. Like, you're doing really important work. Raise that baby well. Make sure they're well behaved when they get to me in 5 years. But until then, you take care of you. You know, don't feel like you need to do more. That is so valuable what you're doing. So in the church context, you've got all kinds of people who are helping. They're doing some of those jobs that would take so much off of our plates. You know, Arla, you were talking about bulletin boards. Put something out, make some friends with some artistic ladies, and be like, hey, could you come in once a week and just refresh that bulletin board? There's got to be a grandma that's just like, I would love, or a retired teacher, I would love to do that. Would that really be helpful? You would literally save my life doing that. That would be amazing. Yes. So there's things that they cannot do, but there's so much they can do. And if we put value into it, that brings them in an amazing way. Yeah.
So how do you put that word out?
Depends on the task. Okay? And I'm going to talk about those moms again that I use, but like a bulletin board, look at who attends school or who attends, so at my school we put out.
Ask them directly?
Oh yeah. If you can invite with a name, that is always best than a blanket ask.
Or maybe put a note on that bulletin board. If you're interested in updating this bulletin board.
Ask your teachers. Ask your teachers. Okay. Do you have any moms who are who used to be teachers who are staying at home? Do you have volunteer hours at your school?
Yeah.
Okay. Say, hey, I will wipe all your volunteer hours if you help me once a week. So something like that, you obviously need a trusted person who's not going to
Sure.
Some of these jobs you need to make sure they're qualified to do it a little bit, but and I have moms that they're kind of my recruiters unofficially, but those are people that I trust implicitly. They have not said a negative word about my school. They have not given my teachers a hard time. I'm very sensitive about that. And so those people then I trust to promote the school. And that's an invisible thing. Like, it's not something, they're not like standing up and doing anything. It's very quiet. But man, when I get inquiries and it's like, I'm friends with Cassie Miller or I'm friends with Kelly, it's like, oh, I see you working. Thank you. And I make sure to thank them and tell them how valuable that is to me, because that is a qualified lead. If someone already knows someone at my school, it's almost 100% that they're coming. Unless we identify a need that we can't meet, it's like 100% conversion for me. That takes out so much energy and time of me having to nurture those leads and, convince people and talk and do all that. Incredibly valuable, not just for me, but they are helping to build the kingdom, because when kids come to my school, they hear about Jesus every day. And we've seen impacts. We had a dad who came to Jesus because his son went to our school and he was baptized last year. He went on a mission trip to Honduras with our team. So the impacts that are happening, and it's like you have to keep them informed of that too, because you invited them. Their whole family was saved. Isn't that amazing? Look at the work you're doing. So extending that, as church workers, I think sometimes we become so boxed in and we've been trained into what we're doing. The general people out there, the congregation, they don't know. They don't understand that who they are right now and vocation is so impactful and important, and that God's using them right now. It's like, bloom where you're planted. That's biblical. Should put that on t-shirts everywhere. So, and again, going back to vocation, so I came to college, Lutheran school. Parents are both Lutheran church workers. I did not learn about vocation until I went to college. Not in any meaningful way. Not in my vocation as a kid is to learn and to be obedient to my parents. Not, as a teenager, vocation is on my basketball team where I'm serving the Lord with how I'm playing, and that can be, something that draws people in, an example. That never was shared with me all the way up until college. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is life-changing. So the second one, I actually just got from a session yesterday and put it in because it changed my life. It was Parenting on Purpose with Sam Fink. Did anyone sit in on that one? Okay, go listen to that, especially if you work in a school. Talking about discipling parents to disciple their kids. So he shared this quote: if you want to build a ship, which is what we're doing, we're growing churches and schools, don't drum up the men to gather wood, divide the work, and give orders. Instead, teach them to yearn for the vast and endless sea. And what that means is that you're putting that passion and vision into them. You are not going to have to, be driving them to do anything. And Luther actually talks about this. He talked about this in the Confessions about, it's the idea of good works and salvation, all of that. And that at the time, people were like, so I don't have to do good works? Is that what you're saying? Great, I'm not going to do anything. And he said, no. If you are a fruitful Christian, if you are truly living your faith, you're never going to have to compel those people, the Christians, to do anything. So he's talking to the church. You're never going to have to compel them. You're never going to have to beg them or coerce them to do anything. In fact, you're going to have to turn people away because they're going to be so engaged in what is happening in that vision that they're going to do whatever they can to get it done. So amazing. And sharing that, again, within the context of vocation, because I think that our people, especially the Lutheran Church, is so great at raising up church workers, but we kind of forget to pull everyone else with us with a purpose, and who they are and what they're doing and what's important for them. So again, instilling in people that urgency. My husband grew up Lutheran, but K through college public school. So he's growing obviously a lot now that we're adults. But when we first got married, he was pretty Sunday school with his understanding of his faith and everything. And we attended an adult Bible class, and the teacher said, I said it before, but if someone doesn't know Jesus, if they die tomorrow, they're lost. There is no coming back. Well, he works in the secular business world, and he has friends on staff who he loves dearly who are atheists, and it just hit him really hard because he's like, it could be tomorrow. Like, what do I do? What do I do? How do I even start talking about this? And how do I? He was lost. It was it was almost a crisis of identity at that point, because he's like, I've been working with them for 8 years, and it could be tomorrow. Like, what do we even do about this? So we don't want that panic. I would call that panic that he had. But when he's equipped and trained, it becomes, we can handle the urgency and we know what to do. So in Texas, and anyone who's on the Gulf Coast, hurricane prep. So people who've lived in Texas, when a hurricane's coming, we usually know 5 days out, and it's just like boom, 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 and you just watch people, they know what to do, and they start doing it. And they board up their houses, they get their groceries, they get everything put together, they're prepping for that storm. It's that sense of urgency, though, because we know it's coming. And we know that as Christians, that it's coming. The end is coming, and we need to get everybody ready. But then also the sense of urgency with the cleanup. So when we have storms that come in, we're there to sweep it up very quickly and get people back and going. So again, within the context of that vocation, where are people right now? When we see hurricanes come through, everyone is helping with what they know to do. So if you're in construction, those guys come in and clean up. You help out as you know to do. I just clicked out of mine. Okay. And then just coming back, algorithms cannot beat that real human connection. So I've gotten more people from that mom who shared than I ever did from a Facebook post or a Facebook ad or a bill. Billboards and things are great at saying, we're here, but they have to be looking for you or needing that. If you don't need a school and you see my school billboard, it doesn't really mean anything to you. You're going to pass it. But if your friend says, go check out Salem Lutheran School, you're going to go check it out. And I would never send my kids somewhere that I didn't have a personal recommendation from. Okay, now I lost where. Story time, trigger warning. I don't know how I did this. Okay, does anyone have questions or anything they want to add? Okay, did I miss one?
I think I can vouch for what you're saying as far as the vocation. We are in the process of redoing our library. Some of the books in it came over on the Mayflower. And so we have been in the process of more or less libraries gutting it. I think that's hilarious, but gutting the library. But when we started talking about how this was going to be a huge fee to no teacher, nobody had time for this, one of our teachers came up and said, hey, one of my grandmas is a retired interventionist for adults. And I'm like, oh. And so we just asked her. She's currently raising the child in our school. And the parents aren't in the picture at all. But she's retired, and she, who else better to do that than a retired reading?
And to sort through the nonfiction stuff and figure out if it's still valid.
So she comes in twice a week for 2 hours each and just sits there and goes through books.
Yep.
And she loves it. And she has the time. And so we were, because the teacher, but that's that building relationship.
Yeah.
The teacher knew what she did.
Yep. Yeah.
She loves it. She loves being in the school.
Yeah.
Feeling valuable.
Yes. It is so important that they know that that's so valuable, and that, and when we talk about, the disciples did this too. So there's a point where they were going town to town, and there are all these discussions about all the things that needed to be done, right? And we experience that all the time. And so the disciples were finally like, we should not be clearing the table. We should not be doing dishes. You guys need to help with that so that we can go teach the word. We need time to study. We need time to discuss. We need time to teach other people about this. That's what we need to do. That is the job Jesus literally gave us directly from his mouth. So we should not be the ones going and taking care of the widows in your town. They are your widows. They are your neighbors. They're probably people you know. You are the ones taking care of them. So, and it trickles down. So then it even trickles down to our kids, and what they're doing at their level of things. So that idea is very biblical of who's around you, and she loves that. That would be torture for me, But it sounds perfect for her, and that's amazing. So discipleship pathway. Anytime you plan, prayer should be the top of your marketing plan. All the time. There should never be any planning without prayer all the way through. Pick your 12. You don't actually have to have 12. But this grandma. So if you have your goal in mind of what you need, find that group that you can bring alongside you that's going to share that vision or value, that vision of the C, within the context of where you're working. And work together. Better together. So that's that shared interest and just getting to know them. It's amazing what comes out separately from, when you're talking to people outside of even their professional context, their interests, things they like to do, and leverage that. And then teach and train them. So like I said, I made friends with that mom, Kelly, and now I'm equipping her with actually, the verbiage. I'm giving her PDFs she can share, all of that. within the organizational context, so this is within our ministries. And like I said, this is all going to be on the app. So within the marketing context now, because marketing is part of our job in some way, okay, there's expectations there. This isn't something that you can just go back on Monday and be like, hey, I just make friends now. Like, I'm not doing any of this anymore. It doesn't work like that. And those things are still effective. They're just effective at different things than what we think they are. So those billboards are great at letting people know, informative. We are here. This is something that's happening at this time. Okay? But that billboard isn't going to be, you know, and I'm not saying that someone can't walk in the street, off the street, and come and listen to a sermon and find Jesus through that. That happens. But from the strategic aspect of what we do, there's nothing that's going to beat that relationship. And biblically, that's the way God set his church up. So I'm not going to say that there aren't other things happening that the Holy Spirit can't, like, gotcha. You know, there's things that happen like that all the time too. But when we're talking organizationally and strategically, the people who are around us is who God placed there to help us. And we need to lean into that. So professionally, on staff, what relationships on staff can you lean into? So for me, I've realized that our student ministry director and our kids ministry directors and me, we're working with the exact same people. We have the same exact clientele across the board. So we're starting to figure out, like, okay, how do we work together? So we had a kid in our school whose dad passed away really suddenly, and our student ministry director is jumping in and calling him to make sure he has a ride to midweek stuff, checking in on him at school, sitting down with him at lunch. My son is friends with that boy, and so I have leaned into letting him know, hey, heard he had kind of a rough day today, like maybe check and make sure he's fine. You know, for him, I'm more of a mom figure, and sometimes boys don't relate to that well, but man, Tyler has got an awesome relationship with those kids. Other relationships on staff, so for me, also parents, checking into they're not staff, but they're part of our family, and just thinking about that. Even people who aren't on your staff. So I'm looking at community relationships right now. I'm looking at other schools who end in 5th grade, and I'm developing relationships with them. We realized that because of COVID and learning loss, and then also the way that public schools are choosing to educate kids right now, that we're looking at 2 to 3 year learning loss gaps with our kids coming in math and reading. Significant, like 4th, 5th grade, we're 2 years behind. We just made friends with the guy who runs Mathnasium in our town. And he's like, you're the only school who's ever talked to us. So now we're friends, and we're building those relationships to help. We all have the same vision there. Now, he's not a Christian, but he just got wrapped into my group. He didn't know it yet. But now I can start that process with him while he is also helping me reach a goal on the other end. So we're mutually helping each other.
So what you're really talking about is schmoozing.
No.
No?
If you're talking marketing, yes, you are schmoozing a lot.
That's what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. Yeah.
But we don't schmooze as Christians. So, you're making real relationships. So, if I'm schmoozing, I'm manipulating you to make a decision that I want you to make.
Okay. All right.
My end goal is that I want something from you.
So, in that context, then how do you, that guy that you were saying that you have made friends with that's out there,
Yeah.
how do you approach that person to begin with if they're, let's say, in a business that you want to have come in or whatever?
Yeah.
How do you approach that
So,
person to begin with
well,
without the smoothing?
Yeah. So my initial thing was, we walked in and we said, our kids are 2 years behind in math. You are right here. Our staff cannot support the need. And we are fearful right now that we're going to have such a boom of kids coming to us with those needs. We're not really sure what we can do, and we can't hold all these kids back. So I came to him with a problem. He had a solution to my problem. That's a business connection right there. So I did not walk in saying, like, hey buddy, like, I scratch your back, you scratch mine. Like, there wasn't anything like that.
Okay.
It was just, I've got this need, you have what
Okay.
I think could meet my need. He said yes. I said great. We did come up with some things where he's going to give us like $100 a kid when we refer. He's also going to recommend our school because we're the only school that has come to him, and he's going to say, Salem Lutheran School cares so much about their kids. They're trying to get help. Now, what did he just do for me?
Sure.
He's not a Christian, but he's just going to be recommending people to come to my school where they're going to hear about Jesus every day, and their dads are going to get baptized and go to Honduras. So that's happening, but now what else has happened with that guy? His name's Dave. So I just created a working relationship with him, completely professional. But what happens when we have academic night at Salem? Dave, you should come see your kids at academic night. Dave sees we have a worship center. Dave might come to church. I've always been nice to Dave. I've always been easy to work with. I've always been agreeable. When Dave says, hey, this is happening right now, and I show him grace, and I'm consistently living up to my faith and everything, I don't have to say a word about Jesus at all to him. He knows I'm working at a Christian school. He's probably assuming that that's what I'm believing, you know. But now all of a sudden, Dave is going to get sucked in. And that's my plan for Dave, but he doesn't know it yet. But, you know, but that's what I'm talking about. So we're not sitting here like, I'm not saying go and make friends and be fake, you know, like the Hey Girls for MLMs. Like, I'm sure, guys, I hope you don't have women doing that, but it is hilarious where you're just like, my son had a pretty significant health crisis at the beginning of this last summer, and I had a friend from college who I have not spoken to since college. Man, I saw your son is sick. I'm so sorry to hear about that. Have you ever tried Juice Plus for him? And I'm like, and I had to channel some grace and mercy in the moment, and I did not have a lot, but I was like, you know, right now, like, he was in the hospital for a week. We're getting 3 days a week of IVs. Like, I'm not going to do Juice Plus. Like, we're going to go with the medical professionals. Like, thank you so much. I appreciate it. But, like, in the moment, what I needed was her to be like, this is absolutely terrible. I'm praying for you. What do you need? Can I send you so that's the difference right there. Was she actually meeting my need? Was she thinking, what does Jessica actually need in this moment? Or she's like, this is a business opportunity for me. That's the difference, okay? She wanted something from me. I don't want anything from them on the spiritual level. So now from Dave, there was a business agreement that happened that was separate, but I didn't leverage relationship to do that. You know, I just walked in and said, is this something you can help us with? And then we ended up hitting it off. So,
similar to that, we have a lot of students that are receiving outside OT and PT from a local company, and so we've been in conversation with them, and they've started coming into our campus during the school day to provide those OT PT services for our students. That's been a blessing to those parents that aren't doing something else overnight. It's been helpful to that company because they can service more people.
Mm-hmm.
It's also getting those therapists in our doors. We're telling our families that need extra support, hey, Hope is willing to come in and do stuff here on campus, and we'll give them the space to do it. So business relationship again back and forth, but also they're going to be telling people, hey, you know, if you really need us during the school day, First Lutheran's letting us come into their building to provide those services.
Yep. Yeah, so, you know, and kind of expanding what you said in Arla too, there's levels that are happening here. So that business relationships, those are pretty static. You know, it is I need this, you offer this, here we go. And that's it.
Understood in the business world.
And that's completely understood. And that's, you know, my husband is a hotel manager. There's always like, we need this, can you offer us this? And he'll say yes or no. Agreement, not agreement, it's not personal. There's no relationship there. Now, he has clients who had a great experience the first time that they stayed with him. They are now repeat customers. So he has certain groups where he knows them, you know, they're person by name. They're coming in. They take extra special care of them because now they are recommending people to come and stay with him too. So, but that's that trust equity that's built over time. But and I'm trying to disciple my husband a little bit to disciple other people. But when those guys come in, he used to have guys that came in to train. We have an oil rig training place not far from his hotel, his primary hotel. And he had regular guys come in for training. And he knew them by name. He would stay late and have drinks with them at the bar at his hotel. He was becoming friends with them. And I was like, they're here for months at a time. It's like, man, if you know them, bring them home. Bring them for dinner. And then they'll get to know us. And they'll see that I've got Bible verses all over my house. And they're going to say, oh, like, they're not what I expected. They're pretty cool and normal people. And I think, I don't know. Sometimes I think about how we've been taught, like Sunday school level, to share Jesus. And it's weird, and it's just like, we're not really told much more than like, invite them to church. It's like, well, like, what if they ask me questions about church? Or like, I don't know that much. And if they share a Bible story in Sunday school or something, I don't know about it. Like, I don't want them to think I don't know what I believe. And it gets so blown up. We also have very much spiritual forces who don't want us to share, pulling against us. And it doesn't take a whole lot of effort for them, for that side of things, to pull us away from that either. But it's those opportunities. So, like, again, I did not go to Mathnasium in Tomball to seek out Dave and be like, we're going to be best friends because you're coming to church with me someday. And, that wasn't there. He just became a natural part of my circle now. And I'm like, oh, you just happen to be one that's unchurched, and now you're churched. So welcome. Welcome to my circle of influence. So, it's leveraging relationships. So once those relationships are made, they are churched because they know you. And we are the church. So, which one do we leave off on? Organizational pathways. Are any of them siloed? So if there's someone who's operating over there and you're like, man, we need to work together, we're doing the same thing, or we have the same ideas, we have that same vision for the sea, got to build those bridges and start building those relationships too. To expand impact and to effectiveness too. Sometimes in church work, we're all doing like the exact same thing but separately. And it's like, if we would just like think about this, we could do it once and have much bigger impact than trying to operate individually. Are any of those pathways clogged? So we all know this. There might be some people on our teams who don't share the vision for the sea. Even in professional church work. And that is extremely frustrating. I've worked at a number of churches, my parents and family members. So in the 3 generations of my family deep, we have like 36 called church workers who are currently working. So I hear a lot. I grew up in the factory and I know how the sausage is made type of deal. I hear all the things about people who are in the church who do not have that vision for the sea and who are either clogged because of things that happened to them, or they are clogging their pathway because they do not want to be connected anymore. That is a significant problem, and if that is identified, that goes to whoever is at that pay grade to start handling those problems, because that is a mission impact-ish situation. And the Bible's pretty clear about stuff like that too. Like, if you can't get that branch to grow, it's time to find someone else or figure it out. That's a sad thing to talk about, but sometimes, like, if you're not working for the kingdom, you gotta figure some things out there from the outside in. Are any of your pathways that you already have open effective, but could they be strengthened? So like I said, with my student ministry and kids ministry people, we realized like, oh, we're making some impact here, but there's more that we could do, and we're exploring that. So step 1 to this, and this is for us in church work and also for the people who are not professional church workers. Get to really know the people you know. it's amazing to me. Like, you'll just be sitting with someone you've known for 5 years and they say something, you're like, what? What is this? Well, how did you, what? I didn't know that about you. So start figuring that out. So you find grandma, who's a reading interventionist, which is actually amazing because if you have a dyslexia kid or some need, see? Oh my gosh. All right. It happens all the time. But you got to get to know people, and you need to get in a place where they start sharing those things with you. Get to know the people they know. So does grandma play bridge? Because now you've got a powerhouse of ladies with a lot of time who love little kids and who will come in and do a ton, like, get them in there reading to the kids. Get them in there helping teachers grade papers. You know, there's so much that they could, teachers are so burned out right now because, like, they never got a break from COVID. They never got to readjust. And now the situation in education for those of you in schools is dire. It is so scary what is happening right now. And I'm in Texas. We were one of the first states to open. So when I heard Courtney Burns say they were still masked up and shut down in January of last year, like, us in Texas is like, what? That was happening? We didn't even know. That is 2.5 years of learning loss and development. We need to be pouring energy and effort into supporting our schools. Especially ministry. And when we talk about, like, psychological, emotional, spiritual impacts of all of that, like, people are acting absolutely crazy right now, and it's the trauma. And this is such a good opportunity for us as Christians to step in. And we're gonna get to this in a minute. I'm getting ahead of myself. So with that, you know, I love studying church history. I love history. Taught history. But talking about, like, the history of church growth and the seasons of time when we saw major growth in churches. And this is church with capital C. After significant crisis, when we go back to European history and we're looking at the plagues and all the things that swept Europe, there were always major religious movements that happened really closely in line with that. We just had a major one. Major in the fact that we had a pandemic, but then also major cultural, like, issues, significant. So this is a prime opportunity where, you know, I think, has anyone read the book Zag? Marketing book? No? You haven't? Seth, oh my gosh. I'm going to buy it for you. Okay, so in marketing, if everyone's zigging, you need to zag, okay? If everyone's doing the exact same thing, so like my picture of my girls at school, if everyone is doing the exact same thing, so, and I'm not even talking about just schools, but we're all posting beautiful pictures on Facebook. We are all doing all the beautiful art. With Canva and stuff now, and our phones, like, everyone's taking good pictures. You have to try to not take a good picture. And with all that, it just becomes, the feedback noise is constant, and people are filtering so much information constantly all the time, and sometimes we just need someone to be like, hey, coffee with me today. And that moment, nothing else will beat that. Nothing else beats these people being seen and known. You know, we do all the market research, we build personas, and we figure out who we're talking to, and those things are important and valid, again, within that business context. But we have to take it one step further in what we do, and focus on those relationships and seeing people. And, you know, I'm not saying again, because I'm looking at a group of tired people. You know, I know, and it's not just because it's early Saturday and we've had a long weekend. It's hard right now, and we in church work know you have to wear all the hats. That's just the nature of the beast. But there's people that are really close to you that could help, and help in a way that you are actually blessing them. You know, I think we sometimes don't want to ask for help because we're working for Jesus, so we don't want to complain. We don't want to say that it's too much. Okay, here's vulnerability. Here's my struggle. And I'm the oldest child. There's all the psychology things with being oldest. But if someone else's plate is super heavy and I'm dropping mine, I'm not going to say anything because they can't take on any more either. Resonate? Yeah. So then I sit here, and another major flaw of mine is that I smile all the time. I never show that something's wrong. You would never, ever, ever know. And so I come to work and I'm like, welcome to Salem. Everything's fine. I'm great. You know, I slept a full night last night and did not wake up at 1:30 to work. But the problem with that is then nobody knows. And then the other problem is I'm fooling myself into thinking like, no, I can do it. I've got it. It's fine. But there's people who are right here in my circle who can help me. And if I just give them that, you know, and going back to the vision of the sea, I have that sense of urgency in me all the time. And that missional desire of like, I don't want anyone around me, you know, if God sits me, and this is not biblical or anything, this is just a picture, an illustration, but if at the end of my life, God sits me down and there's a room full of people where he's like, they were there the entire time and you didn't do anything. Oh, like that lives in me so deeply that I don't want to miss that opportunity, to ignite someone who could end up being more effective than me, which is a pride thing, you know, and then also giving people that feeling of working for Jesus and what they're doing. We could ignite our organization so quickly if we started setting people on fire like that. And we talk about that, and we sing songs about setting people on fire, but what does that look like? We all have instilled in us that vision of the sea, and we need to share that with other people and teach people about that. And for them, if they didn't grow up with that, you know, how many of you are second gen, like parents were in it, in church work? Oh, okay, not that many. So some of you who didn't, how did you get into church work?
I'm the oldest, and I saw a need.
There you go.
I worked at the school that I went to, kindergarten, 8th grade.
Okay.
My mom was the only non-church worker of the siblings, so, you know, it's still in the family, but...
Got it. Yeah.
But also the Lutheran school that I went to growing up closed while I was in high school. My sister didn't get to graduate from it. And so, like, that's where my passion for ministry really stemmed from as well. You know, I was like, okay, I want to teach, and then it's okay. But I've got passion for leading.
Yeah. So, and even with that, you know, those seeds are planted. So the kids that are in our schools, they're getting those seeds from when they're little. And the whole point of Lutheran schools, do you know why Lutheran schools were started? Way back, like at the beginning, to raise up church workers, to make sure we had educated people who could study scripture and who had a firm understanding of all those good things like law, gospel, and, you know, that they could then become church workers and expand the ministry. That's why we have Lutheran schools. And so, you know, planting those seeds in them when they're little and teaching them, if you come and join me in church work one day, that's amazing. But like, you can have major impacts if you're going to be a doctor or a vet or whatever you want to do, an artist, you know, all those things. So, when you're planning your marketing plan, so going back to kind of the business side of this, you should have a marketing plan. You should have an idea for how you're going to inform people about your school. Seth Hins with Storybrand guide Seth, did an excellent session on telling stories, which is also an opportunity based on relationships to get people to share their experiences with Lutheran education. That's still relationships. It's the same thing. We're allowing people to tell the stories of that. And what that does is it takes us from being like if I tell people that Salem Lutheran School is a great school, my friends will believe me, you know, but everyone else that I talk to is like, well, you have to say that because you work there. But if a woman in my school says my kid had dyslexia, we didn't know about it, struggling in reading, Salem identified it and got him help, and now he's doing great. Oh my gosh, that's amazing, you know, and other moms will be able to resonate with that story. She has verified who we are without us having to do anything. And that's, again, when we're talking about working with a $0 budget, $0 to get someone to share their story, but like bigger impact than if you had $1 million budget for marketing. You know, that does more. That little snippet of a story does way more than anything else we could do that's fancy schmancy. So, you know, wrapping up my part, because I want to save some time to just chat, but don't limit yourself to just thinking in that advertising sale context when we're talking about marketing. You have to expand it beyond, because when you ignite that vision of the sea in people, the expansion then that happens after that is going to be huge. I, before coming here, did not know about this. And so I will probably be emailing you in a couple months and being like, listen, I've been doing it, and see where it goes. But Sam's application for this is, again, working with parents who don't know how to disciple their kids, don't know how to teach their kids. Because it's one thing about teaching people about Bible stories, it's another about teaching them how to be Christians and like making sure that they grow up in that. You know, my senior pastor is great about reminding us all the time that we're one generation away from faith dying, from the church dying. That's really scary, you know, and when you think about it and think about people you know, awesome Christian people, and then their kids turn away, that's like the most devastating, that's almost more devastating than them passing away. And why does that happen, and how can we prevent that? And sometimes I think parents are afraid to share because they don't want to turn their kids away. So they don't want to share too much because they don't want their kid to turn away just out of rebellion. So that's what he's working through. We're working in the same context with trying to reach people from the outside and bringing them in. You know, I don't want to say too much because I don't want to turn you off. But what's the right thing to say first? And do you even trust me? And I don't know how to get you to trust me so that you believe me. And so I think we automatically go and start confusing things and making it way more complicated than just literally like, I am nice to Alice in the self-checkout at H-E-B, and she likes my shoes. And that's how we became friends. She's a shoe person like me. And so we started talking about shoes. And then she saw that I wear my name badge, you know, because I'm coming from work. And then I wear shirts with my, you know, oh, you work at Salem? You know, I drive by there every day. Well, Alice, do you drive by on Sundays? You know, you can sit with us. How about you come to church and you come to lunch with us after? Come check it out. You know, no pressure. Just come check it out and come to lunch with us. But we're getting to that point in our relationship where I think she trusts me enough that she'd be willing to come to my house, you know. And I'm not telling her, like, we have a membership class on Sunday and baptisms after. So it's going to be great. You know, and even, so Seth brings this up too when we talked about like the commitment. People are afraid to commit. This is a huge thing. And so when you're talking like schools, and I actually need to make some changes on my website, but apply now, that's a huge commitment. You know, that's like a guy in high school having a crush on you and handing you a ring. You're like, whoa, buddy, like, no, you know, we're committing to something before we even have a chance to like figure out if I even want to like come and see you. So think about it in a personal context, how you would want to be invited. Think about your marketing in the context of just who you know. You know, your grumpy Uncle Gary who won't set foot in a church ever. Why is he like that? Start asking those deeper questions of why. And when, you know, in marketing you should build personas. You need to know who you're talking to. We need to take that and bring it very, very close. Instead of being on the macro level, we need to bring it down to the micro level and think about, okay, I've got Kelly who's sitting right next to me. She's invited a ton of people. How can I use her more effectively? And use in a nice way, not in a schmoozing way. How can I get her ignited? Because then all of a sudden, my effectiveness, and this is, you know, in the church structure, when we talk about Office of Public Ministry and everything, what my call is extending my pastor's call. So I'm expanding his effectiveness. These people who are working with us and around us, it's the same thing. They're expanding our effectiveness around us and taking on those tasks so that we can keep doing what we need to do. So anyway, any questions or things that you're currently working through, or anything I said that you're like, that is off the wall?
We're kind of thinking in terms of like volunteer opportunities over COVID. I think most places took the opportunities and made it like the easiest possible. Mm-hmm. Like a trained monkey could do this. We just need bodies to do whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And like people don't want to do that. And like again, our theology is, no, actually, if you're using your gifts, that's going to benefit you as a disciple, and that's what you're created for. And so to tap people into this is actually meaningful stuff. Like, versus, we just need someone to coach the basketball team.
Yeah.
You know, like.
So that's actually a psychological thing. So if I put out, we need someone to coach the basketball team, okay? Most people are actually pretty humble. So they're going to be like, oh, they're giving it to everyone. They probably have people signed up. But when you come up to Dan, because your boys are in scouts together, and you're like, I know you played basketball through high school. Would you consider coaching the JV boys basketball team? But what's required for that?
Relationship with you that he did that.
Yes. So again, when we blast, we're blasting at a 10,000 foot level. People are so bogged down and busy right now. We took the quiet of COVID and smushed everything, and we talked about that in Courtney Burns' section. Parents right now feel guilt and shame for what their kids missed out on, and so what they're doing now is they are making up for lost time and putting their kids in everything. That's why parents are losing it over little things like their kid didn't make the team they wanted them to make. Their kid didn't get the part they wanted them to play. It's guilt and shame that's just pouring out of them because they're trying to pick everything in. But what comes with that is, I'm spread so thin I can't possibly. And so but when we know, hey, you're trying to do things that are outside, you know that guy loves basketball, he's great with kids, ask him by name. Because that's also flattering for them too, like, oh wow, you knew that about, like, you think I can do a good job? And you're pouring into their vocation where they are, which is discipling and filling a need for you too. But now that's also a long-term relationship that could happen. You know, I had coaches that started out as just a dad coach situation. They coached for like 25 years. You know, that became their ministry, was coaching. My life has been deeply impacted by men like that and women. But they were given the opportunity. They were invited to do it. So, yeah.
So I'm not really good at that kind of thing. I mean, I'm an extrovert and I can talk to anybody, but I'm not good at developing the relationship. And like if I said to somebody, let's go out for a cup of coffee, or let's go to lunch, or let's go, I don't know that I would know what to talk about.
So that's something I like to do. What do you like to do for fun?
Face paint.
Okay, this is what you do then. What's the youngest group? Do you have preschool at your school? So you can teach a little class about face painting. Go in when they've got to have little activities and events. Get a couple ladies and go face paint those kids. Do what you like to do. So nothing about this should be fake or forced. I love coffee. I will any one of you, like today, I would go out to coffee with everyone and that's who I've never met a stranger. Some people are like, that is so weird, you know, and that's you and that's me. So what do
I talk about? I mean, how do you develop that relationship?
So again,
that you know that you're developing for church.
So who's your best friend?
I have a friend down the street who's a real estate agent.
So why is she your friend?
I guess because we talk and we do things together.
So friendship usually starts with just a mutual interest that you start talking about, right?
Okay.
So once you start talking about one mutual interest, then all of a sudden she's like, man, I collect this stuff. And you know, you just start listening. So I'm not sitting here like, you want to go get coffee? I'm like, I'm going to talk to you about basketball because I'm a basketball coach. And you're like, I don't know about basketball. Like, what is this lady doing? And I'm like, what kind of stuff do you like? You know, and I'm like, listening because I'm going to be your friend. And then I'm going to use you to do stuff at school. So none of this is forced. Nothing about this is forced. This is finding the people around you and just being like, what common interests do we have? Now, if you and me are completely different people and we don't have anything in common, which I don't think is actually accurate, I think we all have at least one or two things in common. But if we can't find it, or if we're just so opposite personalities, you're like, you know, probably not going to be close, but you remind me of this other lady and you connect me with her, that's also beneficial. But it's about, again, we're going from marketing being like, I need someone for this. And it's lost because we have so many people asking us for so many things. And we assume that need's going to be met by someone else. That's just the assumption. But now, the other thing that happens with those individual points is that I have to tell you no, and you're my friend. And so I'm going to take that no or that yes pretty seriously. I'm also going to feel real good that someone thought of me to do that and to take on more responsibility at the church school. And I think that's also very important. Part of this, too, is allowing people to take those responsibilities within the context of who they are and what they are. So, does that make sense?
And I think a big thing too is like a now no is not a forever no. We talked about that yesterday. I think they're watching now. Now that you asked him to be the basketball coach and he said no this year, and he's watching.
He's going to pay closer attention.
Some interest.
He's going to pay closer attention. He's going to watch and see how the AD backs up coaches. He's going to ask questions, you know, and now might not be a good time. And that's fine, and we need to allow that too. But when we know people, we know, like, they just had a baby. We're not going to ask him to coach, or they're going through a lot right now. So we're going to, you know, we're going to go in and support at that point. So the relationship changes where we need to catch him versus asking him to do more. You know, as a parent, right now, again, I have a 4th grader and a 7th grader. I feel like 100% of the communication that comes to me from school, church, all asks all the time. And I am constantly juggling with who needs to be where and when and what. Okay, you need cupcakes for this, but you need cookies and a uniform, but not that uniform, but a sweatshirt and this and that. And now you're going to a friend's house, and now I'm taking kids here. And I am so, you know, I work full time. I got 2 kids busy who aren't even as busy as some kids. Sometimes I'm like, I cannot do one more thing.
It is that relationship piece of knowing the schedule and things, because like we have some, you know, like adopt a flower bed. Hey, you just come weed that flower bed whenever it needs to be weeded on your schedule. It can be after drop off and pick up over the weekend. You make it a family event, and it can be you. It's a way that you can be involved, something that needs to be done, but it's in knowing who to ask for, like,
Yeah.
you need something flexible, or here's some stuff that we can send home.
Yeah.
We send this home with you because we know you work nights, or, you know,
Yeah.
whatever.
It's that individual ask, but even like flower beds, you know, I was talking about gardening one day, completely out of context of anything school related. I was just saying, I'm from Michigan, you just put stuff in the ground and it grows, and in Texas you have to like, Texas hates anything that blooms. And so I'm like, what do you, like amending soil? What? Like I don't understand anything, and then it's 105 degrees, but I don't, so anyway, my green thumb died when I moved to Texas, and I'm just talking about it, and this woman overhears me. She's like, I just finished my Master Gardener certification with the Harris County. You can ask me questions anytime. Okay. So then I was like, do you ever want to help us like with the garden out back? She's a grandma of one of our kids. And, oh yeah, I would love to. So I'm like, okay. So now when we're ready to do that, I've got this woman who's literally an expert in that. And I didn't go seeking it. She was in the room talking with mutual friends, and she offered it. So that's what it's listening, but you can't listen if you're not in that close proximity with people. So I have a list of books too that I've read through that I'm going to put with my presentation in the app. 2 that I would highly recommend that you read, that the people you work for read. Letters to the Church by Francis Chan. If you haven't read that one, that was really impactful. Kind of writes like Paul writing to the New Testament churches, but he's writing to the church today in America.
What's the last name of that one?
Chan, C-H-A-N. And then the other one is Church Marketing 101. And the author is escaping me, but I'll post everything in the app. He also bridges marketing and ministry really well, and offers some more practical applications. So we skimmed today, but he offers more of how that actually looks within the context of your jobs. So, yes.
One easy practical tool is to build relationships, to go to all the preschool directors in your community, introduce yourself, and to say, for every child that you send to us, we'll send $100 to your preschool. Mm-hmm. And that's a registration fee. If they don't sign up and register, if that kid registers, you've lost nothing. Mm-hmm. And you've now leveraged yourself with every preschool around, and they can build into your community, and build relationships, and then you can do your intra-marketing to all those kids and families that come into your school.
And
Why would another preschool?
They don't have another school. There's all those early childhood preschool that stop at 4 years
Do you
old.
have a preschool though?
We do.
See,
But we don't have an elementary education.
Well, we ran into the problem of that didn't work for us because they were worried like little Timmy's little sister and brother would come out.
so we do the,
That's
yeah,
just the way we're, because we go down to 2 years old.
so do we, yeah.
I'm talking about for K through whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so
So I'm an infant through 8th grade, and I've started working on that with some schools. We have a Montessori school that ends in 1st grade, and he loves Salem, the director over there. But we have an agreement that I will not take siblings unless there's a move, or unless there's an agreed upon mutual closure at their school. Sometimes the school's not a good fit. So I don't want to say we won't take any siblings, because that's not true. If they end a relationship, I will take them. But we want to make sure it's mutual and amicable. Now, in the same respect with that, so this is a business relationship first. If I have a family that I can't take because my 1st grade's full, I'm going to send them down the street to Lakewood. Or our preschool fills up and has wait lists. We're going to say, we'll send, you're close enough that we'll send our kids to you, knowing they're going to come back to us in kindergarten. So you have to develop those relationships. There's Redeemer Austin. Connect with them. They do an amazing job. They've got like 32 preschools that they work with just where they're located in Austin. Tons of preschools that they use to fill up their kindergarten. But with that, so Salem is a big church school. We're big. We offer more in programming and probably support and have more community support. We know counselors. We have dyslexia intervention things in the school that smaller schools are not going to have. And so, again, if you're partnering, like you said, with some of these Christian preschools, we're continuing their discipleship pathway with these kids. And for them, that's amazing that relationship is going to be continuing with us. And we're building that and partnering with them in ministry. So that's, again, I would count that as like, who do you know and who do they know? And connecting like that. And offering a church home for their unchurched families, if they're not connected with a church. Anything else? Our time is up.
Thank you.
You're welcome.